And my name's Linda Rourke. I am hosting these webinars for alumni. I am an alumni of Mohawk College, graduated from the media broadcasting television program in 1990. So I'm a proud grad. I'm actually back at Mohawk College working for the Mohawk College Foundation. So I work with the academic teams to look for industry partnerships to help our students. And it's really rewarding to be back at the college and still on the Alumni Council as well. So I get to figure out great things that we can do to support alumni. And this is one of them. This webinar series has been really amazing because it's tough. I mean, we're all dealing with really unique situation here with COVID-19. And this can add stress and anxiety. And I think often we don't even necessarily realize that it's doing that. And then of course, the physical side, are you getting exercise in? And what are you doing for yourself to get out there? Because I think a lot of us are probably visiting the fridge a little more often. I will now introduce who we've got here with us today. And we've got Kat Cluley, who's the manager of our David Braley Athletic Center at Mohawk College, a great facility, and Kat's amazing. She's always got such incredible energy. And Basilia Idamasi is our counselor one of the counselors at Mohawk College. And it's really great to have both of you here to kind of talk about the physical and mental side of things. And I think the two, right, they just mesh, they go hand in hand. And I wanted to start off talking about our mental well-being overall. We're 3 months in to this, believe it or not, for most of us, working from home, just the changes, maybe not even working at all right now, and that's really hard. So I'll let Basilia, you start. And if you want to just introduce anything else about yourself that you want to bring to the table so that our group of alumni can better get some understanding of you, then that's great. And then we can talk a little bit about the mental health side of things. Kat, will go to you next.
Sure. So it's great to spend this time with you this afternoon. So my name is Basilia, and I'm a member of the counseling team at the college. We assist students with the full range of kind of issues that a student might present to in counseling. Everything from personal issues, academic skills counseling so that people can feel like they're effective learners. We help students with mental health issues, and we help people around career-related issues, where they are, where they want to be going. So we assist people that way. Currently, we, like everyone else, have pivoted, and we're providing counseling online and through telephone to students. And when we're on campuses, we support students at all campus and at the student residence. So that's a little bit about me.
I mute myself in between. So Kat, and how about you? Give us a little bit of a background, and then we'll get started right into the conversation.
Okay, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. As Linda said, I'm Kat, and I've been the manager at the David Braley Athletic and Recreation Center now 2 years. And so I manage the facility in that we have students, alumni, staff, faculty, community, all accessing our facility to get their sweat on, to work out, to get release their stress, take a break, whether it be just, walking around the track, taking a yoga class, all the way up to an intense spin class or strength training using our equipment. We also have 3 gymnasiums that you can come, and we offer equipment where you can play basketball, badminton, racquetball, anything like that, and come on your lunch break, come before and after. We're open, all days of the week, and it's a great facility to come. It's really a community where we come and we welcome you, and we get to know you on an individual basis. We also have varsity sports. So we have a lot of fun going on there, and those are things that we're going to be talking about today. And how can we now, in our 92nd day of COVID, try to continue that when our facility is closed?
Yeah, and I think that's a big challenge for so many people now, is the fact that they're at home, they can't go to their yoga classes or the gym they were attending or whatever it happens to be, to have that sort of physical side of things. And I really think a lot of people are feeling some stress and anxiety from that. What are some things that people can do, Basilia, to really help with that side of it, like to deal with the anxiety and stress that they might be under during this pandemic?
You know, I think it's very individual, but there are a number of things that we always recommend. So one thing that's important is to kind of accept your feelings. And so sometimes that actually can be very difficult to do because the feelings that we're having are unpleasant sometimes. It's hard to deal with uncertainty. It's hard to deal with the fear of what's going to be happening as we're reopening our communities and our economy. All of those kinds of things. So sometimes we actually have feelings that we don't like, and we spend a lot of energy trying to push them away. And so one of the things that we recommend is, rather than putting energy into pushing them away, is just to kind of acknowledge that we have sometimes uncomfortable feelings. We can't feel contentment and happiness and joy all the time. This is part of the human experience. It's part of what is acceptable, it's normal, it's appropriate to kind of experience during this difficult time. And I think another thing that's really important is we've had to kind of create new routines. And as Kat said, you know, 92 days in, we probably had to we shifted that a few times. We've had to try and find different ways of developing routines. But particularly in terms of times of uncertainty, routine is important. It gives us a lot of predictability. It gives us some stability. And it also helps us to feel like we've accomplished something. Sometimes when we're feeling like we're very anxious or overwhelmed, we're kind of spinning, that kind of gives it a bit of a container where we can move forward. The other thing that I think can be really, really important, and we're going to really spend a lot of time about this today, is managing our physical energy. So exercise or moving your body is important. Drinking water, nutritious meals, and I would say, you know, prioritizing sleep. All of those things are so foundational for our mental well-being. And sometimes when we get very stressed and overwhelmed, those things kind of go by the wayside, but really, we really need to kind of try and anchor them back into our lives. And then I think the other thing that's really important is using our bodies in terms of using our breath to kind of calm us down when we're getting overwhelmed. And so what we know is that when we do feel overwhelmed, we tend to breathe through our chest. And what happens is that's our fight, flight, or freeze response. That's when we're getting kind of really anxious and overwhelmed. And just simply by breathing differently, we can actually relax our bodies and therefore relax our minds. And a simple way of doing that is just trying to practice by breathing through our belly. And so kind of bringing some attention and focus to just kind of breathing in and watching and noticing your tummy expand. And then when we breathe out, our tummies contract. And I actually like to kind of modify that a little bit, in the sense that I like to kind of breathe in for, say, a count of 4, and I like to have a longer exhale. And one of the things that we know is that the longer exhale we have, the quicker it pulls in that calming part of our nervous system to actually settle us down. And so a lot of times when I start to get anxious or nervous, I just really focus on breathing as a way to just kind of bring me back into the moment.
Great perspective and comments there about what we should be doing, because I think, yeah, I mean, eating healthy is so important, but yet we're probably going to those comfort foods and the things we're putting into our cupboards that we probably shouldn't. And especially getting that exercise in. So Kat, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about that, because the physically doing something with our bodies each and every day, regardless of whether or not we're dealing with a pandemic, is important, but being isolated and being stuck in the house, let's talk through why it is so important to get the physical activity happening.
All right, thank you so much, Linda. Basilia, I just wanted to say that one thing I like to do is add a mantra to my breathing. So one thing that I like to say especially when I teach yoga, is inhale just, exhale be. And again, inhaling into your belly or your tummy rather than your chest, and expanding. That though, when we do our high intensity workouts, we want to breathe into our chest, which I call our awakening breath. But I like adding a mantra, and mantras are really helpful during this time. So as far as working out and exercising, I think back to when I was in high school, and one principle I like to follow is the KISS principle. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, right? So I think keeping it simple is walking. I truly believe that in our community around us, we have so many beautiful places to walk. We're right near water. We have the Bruce Trail. We have a lot of beautiful waterfalls. So walking socially distanced appropriately, but getting out and exploring and keeping it simple. It's going back to our basics, right? And that is something simple you can do. And when I've suggested that to some people, some feedback I get is, well, that's a bit boring. And then it brings up the next thing is community. Community is so important during this time. And so if it's a social distance walk with a friend who's walking socially distanced appropriately, where you can walk and talk, because I always find that another really important thing to do during this time is to talk it out. And be in community and communicate. And I find sometimes it's hard for me to have meaningful and deep conversations when I'm sitting across the table from somebody. But when I'm going for a walk outside and I'm just, concentrated on my cadence of my footstep and my breathing, and I'm not making that eye contact, I'm more apt and able to open up and have deep, meaningful conversations and really share my feelings. So I really value just, going back to basics. Another thing you can do, and these are things that I'm sure you can read about or you probably heard, is take the stairs, park further away in your parking lot and on the way into the grocery store. So all those little simple things can help you out. Add some fun into your workout, and I think we'll be talking a bit more about that later on, Linda, is how can we add creativity and fun into our workout? And one thing I always go back to again is going back to my childhood. What did I love to do as a child? Well, then I try to think, okay, usually it involved playing, usually involved people. And how can I replicate that now and during this time? Well, one thing that we can do is Zoom is a great tool to connect, just like we're connecting now. And can we use Zoom to stay active? And that's something that we're going to end up talking about, some tools and resources to stay connected to our community and work out at the same time.
Yeah, there's so many great online Zoom options anymore. It's there's other ways to access it as well. But Celia, I wanted to ask, Kat, you brought up a really good point when you talked about connecting with other people, like social distance, but seeing other people and talking things out. There are some people that don't have that as an option, that maybe they just don't know who to tap into. So where can people like that go if they are in real need of someone to talk to, or they're not getting enough through whoever they are talking to and they need to take it one step further?
Yeah, I think we're having to be creative, because a lot of people are talking about feeling very disconnected and isolated through this process. And so, starting with the networks that you do have, what we kind of know is sometimes we don't need to have a lot of people in our lives to feel connected. Sometimes if we have one or two people that we can reach out to and kind of open up to, that makes all the difference in the world. So, and sometimes that might mean reconnecting or taking some initiative in the areas that we do have. There's a lot of online communities that people can join around specific issues or interests. And so that would be another thing, because that's a natural way of people kind of making that instant connection around those kinds of things. And if you're feeling like you're needing some more kind of therapeutic support, there are those kinds of resources as well. There's some good helplines that are available through different levels of government. There are helplines that are available to college students. So there really is kind of a range of things. Also too, you might be in communities already. So maybe you're part of a faith community and you might want to kind of see if there's some opportunities there. Sometimes too, just by the one or two people we do know, is having conversations with them about how to open up, who do they access, who do they know? And so sometimes it's just kind of that process of unfurling what we already know and do that can really make a difference.
Which is so great. And there are, we're so fortunate that we've got technology in all of this, right? So we do have ways to reach out and see other people and tap into different types of communities. I often hear from people, they say, I'm just not motivated to do anything. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to build in exercise, or, what are some thoughts on that? Because to me, it's just excuses. We can always find an excuse. So how do we find that internal motivation to actually start doing things and finding places where it can be a lot of fun? Kat, let's go back to that.
Sure. And you know what? Right away, I would have to say that it depends on the personality, because what motivates me might not motivate you, Linda, or you, Basalia, is like, so I think we have to intrinsically think about what motivates us. Could it be a goal? You know, I was talking with my mom and we were reading a newspaper article, and a goal could motivate you. So signing up for something, and I know right now there's not much to sign up for. I did see Road to Hope is going virtual though. So the Road to Hope Marathon, and many of us know about Road to Hope. It's in Hamilton in November. So they do have a virtual option. Setting a goal with a friend, maybe even, and it could be just a goal to say, hey, by, you know, the end of the month, I would like to try to do 10 push-ups. So maybe working with a family member or a friend in your community to set a goal. If a goal isn't it for you, maybe you write it down and record what you're doing. So maybe you're recording, and some people like to see it and they journal and they write about what they plan on doing or what they did that day. So journaling. Another way to stay motivated is to make it fun, as I had said before, and think about what you enjoyed as a child. Was it throwing the Frisbee around? Was it kicking a soccer ball? Well, can you bring that back alive into your life now as an adult? Because most of the time what we did enjoy then is something that we do enjoy now. And we're trying to also, another way to do it is try to do it without making it sound like it's exercise. So can you go out and play with people? Can you go out and play with your children, your grandchildren, your neighbors, your family, and your friends? And then at the end of it, you're like, whoa, my heart rate was up there and I was laughing and we were just playing, but I got in a workout. So it's not necessarily, does it have to be like strenuous where it's like, okay, I have to set my alarm to wake up? Yes, that might motivate you, but that might not motivate everyone. So finding out what makes it motivational for you is probably the best starting point.
And I think even looking at things, as you said, that you like to do, if you like gardening, there is so much good in gardening physically, but also mentally. I mean, there's research now to show being out in nature and also being in your garden and doing gardening can do wonders for your mental well-being.
I totally agree with that. And I've been leading some Zoom fitness classes, and I often will say to everyone, you know, we're doing this so that we can stay strong, so you can get out there and do your gardening. And you know what? And if you can't get to the workout today while cleaning your house, turn on some music, get outside and do your gardening. So whatever you can to stay motivated and active. It's a lot of fun. So I appreciate that, Linda. That was great.
Yeah, put on good music. You're right. Just dance, if nothing else, right? Just, you know, get the music that makes you feel happy, because that just does so much for us. And Celia, I really love the comments about breath. I'm a yoga teacher as well, so breathing is key, and it makes the world of difference. So I really think that's an incredible takeaway for people to think about. And then can you give some ideas of how to work that into your day, like just so that people know that I've got to work on my breathing.
Yeah, I often actually, for myself personally, when I get up in the morning, I spend a couple of minutes doing some breathing just to kind of bring myself in the moment. You know, before my brain starts going off, I need to do this, I need to do this. It just kind of brings me right into this moment. And I actually do it just before I go to bed as part of a bedtime ritual. So, because sometimes the days for us can be so jam-packed that it's easy for us not to focus on those things. So I always suggest to people, you know, during stressful times, thinking about when might your stress actually kind of be more pronounced, and adding it into those parts of the day and making it part of a routine. But sometimes it can just be very kind of a subtle thing. Maybe you can just take a breath when you just, as a text comes in, that might be a time when you can just kind of take one kind of nice deep breath and then respond to the text. It could be one of those kinds of little cues, right? And really the whole point of this is just to kind of just take a moment. And sometimes it can be through breathing, and sometimes it actually can just be by focusing your attention on whatever you're doing at that particular moment. That brings down our anxiety and our stress as well. So if we're, you know, sitting outside with our dog and our mind is racing, it's a good time for us to kind of go, let me see what it's like to just be here with my dog, pet my dog, experience what that is like. And that's a time for everything to kind of get aligned back in the moment. And that can actually just kind of calm down some of those feelings of anxiety or uncertainty that we might be struggling with.
And I think too, finding online programs, right, where you actually sign up for something, because then you've got that commitment, right? You've got the goal, as you were talking about, Kat, is like, I want to do 2 classes a week. And I always find when you try to do stuff on your own, it can be hard. But when you've signed up, you feel like you've committed and that you're going to actually go and do it. So I think that that's something that people can look at. And as you had mentioned earlier, there's lots of things happening online, even just through Zoom.
Yeah, there's something too is it's our new normal, and that's kind of, in the title of this webinar is in order to embrace our new normal, I truly believe we have to grieve our old normal. So I think that if we haven't gone through that process yet, I encourage our viewers and our listeners to really sit and use your breath to grieve that loss. And it is a loss of what life was. And now, once we're able to do that, then we have space to embrace our new normal. And part of that new normal is facing the fact that, yes, gyms aren't opening this summer. We don't know when. I was with the YMCA before this, and I know that the YMCA is looking to try to reopen by the end of the year. And other gyms, including Mohawk, we don't have a date yet. So because we don't have that in line, it's the facts. The facts are we're in our new normal. So how can we work out at home? And one way is through Zoom. And I've heard from my friends, it's like, there's so many videos out there where you're looking at somebody and you don't know that person. Like, you can go out there and you can find a lot of exercise routines online. What I'm hearing though is then that lacks the community, and then because you don't know the people and you don't know the instructor. So I encourage our viewers to try to find a group where you know your instructor. Maybe there was an instructor that you went to. Can you reach out to that organization, that association, try to find out if they're doing something where that instructor is actually doing a live class? Try to connect with those people that you're used to connecting with. For example, at Mohawk College, we do have some Zoom classes. Linda is teaching some yoga. I'm teaching some cardio and some strength training. Grab your can of soup and you can join us. We have an offering every day. And then at the beginning and at the end, you can actually engage with people that you remember seeing and the instructor. So I really think that community part is vital during these times.
Yeah, it really is. And we've got about 6 minutes or so left. I've got a really good question here. What can we do to prepare ourselves mentally for returning to the workplace while social distancing is in place? Others are looking forward to this because they'll be able to see people more frequently. But I, who wrote this in, work in childcare and have already heard from friends and family who may feel even more nervous to see me once I begin back at work. Really, really good question and comment there.
Yeah, excellent question and comment. And I think a lot of people have exactly those kinds of concerns. Part of, I think, getting ourselves ready is thinking a little bit ahead. So what are you specifically concerned about and what can you actually control? So certainly we can control our own behavior. We can follow all of the public health guidelines that people have instilled in us. We can, if we have specific questions or concerns, I think it's important to really think about those things, have a dialogue before we go back into the workplace with our employers, get information. Maybe you've got some information, some resources that you might want to share or some ideas. I think people are open to kind of learning and figuring this out all together. So it's really thinking through some of those kinds of things and asking questions and moving forward that way. The other thing is, think about, we have always moved through times of transition and change. This is a global one that we're kind of experiencing. What strengths have helped you to kind of get through those transition times before? What have you learned from that? Is there anything that you can do to kind of harness and move that into the future? So if you have always been a person that's been very resourceful and a good communicator, use those kinds of strengths to kind of think about how you're going to do that going back into the workplace. And I think it's also okay just to express your concerns and say, I am worried about these kinds of things, and open up the discussion so that I think what you're feeling, a number of other people are feeling, and the more we come together around this and sort it out together, I think the more it's going to help us.
Yeah, that was a great question and comment, because we're going to all go through that, right, as we move forward, and workplaces are going to be different. And yes, people are going to react differently to you. I've had some of those conversations where, people are like, well, are you working? And then they, they get a little bit nervous. So boy, that was what was a really good comment and question. Also, how am I to balance online learning from children in school for myself, as the daycare will be altered or non-existent for some? So that's like, people are going to face so many different challenges, right, as we move forward.
So I actually think that's probably one of the biggest challenges when you have so many responsibilities. And so maybe is thinking through how you're going to structure your day. And kind of building it in. So are there opportunities, depending on your house composition, are there other people that can maybe kind of distract, play with the kids, do some of the teaching while you're kind of doing some of the stuff at a separate time, at your own time? So kind of structuring some of it in and thinking it through. And thinking through in terms of, when are you best to do some of your online learning? Is it better? Are you better in the morning? Are you better in the day once you've accomplished a couple of things? And kind of playing around with some of that. So I think it's developing a new system and a new structure. And I don't actually think that there's going to be any easy answers. I think it's really going to be working with your family situation, but knowing that you can't do everything as well as you might want to do. And I think sometimes we have to kind of get clear about our expectations and maybe modify our expectations a little bit. And I think people are very accepting that we can't do everything when we're at home learning and taking care of kids and cleaning houses and trying to exercise and stay healthy. I think there's an appreciation that that is in fact quite difficult for most of us.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Some really good points and some great comments and feedback from people watching today. And it's a completely different world for so many of us. And it's not easy, it's hard. And a lot of good things you talked about. Find things that are fun, to get some sort of physical activity in your day and bring joy. The other is to talk to people, have a community, even if it's just one or two people that you can really tap into to talk about your feelings and stress. And yeah, if you're going back to work and you're going to be working in a daycare, talk to your friends about that. That's not easy for you either, right? So have those conversations, be very open, and not hold everything in, because I know how bad that is for us, both mentally and physically, when we don't express and share what's going on. Some last minute comments by either of you before we wrap up today. We just got about a minute and a bit left.
Just maybe something, sometimes when things are hard, sometimes it's actually good just to look for what's going well. That is actually really helpful in terms of making us feel more hopeful and making sure that we're recognizing that along sometimes with a lot of actual hardships, there are some things that are going okay in our lives. And sometimes that can give us a bit of momentum to move forward.
Yeah, I think I'll leave you with something similar. Is just find joy every day. Find joy in every moment and every day as much as you can, and embrace our new normal.
Fantastic. I can't thank both of you enough. Like, you really good insight, really great perspective, a nice balance between understanding the physical and mental side of things. And we're getting great comments from everybody saying thank you, good positive conversation, thanks for the workshop, great information. So good questions. Yeah, all of it was really great. And I always say every day we wake up, we have a choice. We can be happy or we cannot be happy. So let's try to be happy. Thanks everybody for joining us. We still have a workshop to go, and then I'm hoping we'll see even more after next week. But next week is talking about culinary, like coming up with ideas in the kitchen and what you can be doing, because I think so many of us have been tapping into our culinary abilities, whatever level that they're at. And again, I can't thank the two of you enough for being here and sharing your insight and your thoughts and your perspective. You're both joyous people to be around. Healthy habits in a new normal. That's what we talked about today. That's what we're all working towards. Thanks so much, everybody. You will be sent a copy of this. Have yourself a great rest of your day and a beautiful weekend. We'll hopefully see you back here again next week. Thanks, Kat.